It's the literal IT tech bro hand waving a fake fly aside. The fucking elephant in the room is the lack of investigation and the jump into speculation. I mean, if investigations, sure, let's say that they want to double check, triple check, quadruple check, like they did that area that she was found in, even though they, searched that area extensively, supposedly. But put that aside for a second. Why are they letting the fucking media give false accusations left and right then? That's not fucking that's doing one job. Either way, I'm gonna stop hammering on the fucking media, but I just hate, we don't know. Why do they act like they do? But anyways, we'll move along. I'll try to wrap this up. So, we're gonna talk about, obviously, Casias, Melissa Casias, the work that she's done, But, it's actually quite difficult to find, just, with the claims of where she was found and whatnot, that there would just be more pictures, and I'm not saying the gruesome ones, I'm saying there'd just be more, more imagery, more fucking people pointing at the spot type of thing. But the absence of extensive imagery and deep investigative coverage, especially if it's coming from different jurisdictions that are all hands on deck supposedly, the investigative coverage of Melissa Casias, her case is a direct result of institutional secrecy. That absence is, the active information suppression and the missing white woman syndrome bias bullshit that dominates mainstream media. In law enforcement and the forensic community, the lack of public evidence is not a fucking accident. I've kind of worked in these sectors, and it is the natural byproduct of how certain high-stakes investigations are tightly fucking controlled from the inside. The peer behind, come here, look closer, look behind the scenes. It explains why the fucking public is left with so few visual assets or detailed reports. You got, number one, the federal, quote, lab facility, unquote, blackout, so somebody that works for a place for a long time as a respected person in that career field, they don't mention her at all as if she never existed. It's kind of like the lab. Yeah, it's like a clearance buffer. Melissa was a fucking active, high-level administrative employee at Los Alamos National Laboratory. When an individual connected to a primary nuclear defense and aerospace facility goes missing, well, the investigation immediately interfaces with federal agencies and withholding evidence, surveillance footage, withheld, building access logs, not shown, not even addressed, and the raw digital forensic data from her 2 wiped cell phones are strictly guarded under federal and state law enforcement exemptions. And those phones, they weren't fucking factory reset all at once. They were different times they were reset. The public is only shown heavily fucking edited and curated narrations of low resolution stills, like the single state road 518 highway camera frame. Yeah, cool. You can't even tell if that's fucking her or not, but because releasing clear footage could totally compromise investigative techniques or reveal local surveillance networks or just try to get you to look away, right? They're going to say it's for fucking investigative purposes, but man, they fucking suck at their job. So then you get number 2, the fucking media bias. Because if it was truly about fucking protecting the integrity of the surveillance and the techniques of investigations, they wouldn't let people fucking go about on the news stations report her as anything other than the fucking what it is, right? So, to slander her name before the fucking coroner's report fully was released, I mean, that's not investigative work. It's like the ideal victim template is fucking established. It's like the mainstream cable news heavily prioritizes a very specific demographic for wall-to-wall coverage, you know? Typically young, affluent white women, a phenomenon known as missing white woman syndrome, and the erasure of minority cases. As a 53-year-old Hispanic woman living in rural New Mexico, Melissa's case did not fit the sensationalized national media blueprint, though. So because national networks didn't deploy massive broadcast teams to Teos County during the critical first weeks, you know, the great investigation of her 2025 disappearance, there's no extensive archive of, you know, B-roll footage. Of course not. They knew she was missing. They didn't go fucking investigate it, or were they, you know, they were aware she was missing, but nobody was investigating it. They say they were investigating it. They don't have the footage because it took too long for them to fucking start investigating it. But yet the footage, it's just, you know what I mean? The local on the scene reporting, or, you know, the high profile press conferences that they give a fuck. 3, active scene suppression by the fucking authorities. No crime scene imagery, of course not. In a standard non-classified case, local sheriff departments often release basic photos of evidence, at least the area, like a vehicle, a piece of clothing, better fucking, you know, or the general area of discovery. It's to drum up community tips for the investigation, typically. You know, that's how it's supposed to go. That's how it typically goes. You get strict information lockdown, like the New Mexico State Police and the Office of the Medical Investigator have kept the physical details of her discovery tightly fucking sealed. They let it known that she had a firearm on her that indicate that she self-inflicted a wound to herself. Gun wasn't hers. She was found in a place that has already been searched, but was found 6 miles away from the house, you know, from a place they already searched. Not her gun, not, you know. You know, the shocking details that have leaked, though, it's like that her skeleton was just found propped perfectly upright against a fucking tree. And you know what's even weirder is that she's been out there, supposedly, if she did that to herself for as long as she's been missing. 0 animal disturbance? Are you kidding me? I don't know where you guys live, but coyotes? Even birds, dude, bugs. I mean, there was no animal disturbance. She's propped. And a gun on her non-dominant side, by the way. It just it did not come from the official police brief, though. So they came actually directly from the private investigator Thomas McNally, who went rogue to the press because the state was keeping the case completely fucking quiet. You know? He was a homicide detective, and he's a private investigator for the family now. But the weaponization of the, if I remember correctly, actually, but the weaponization of the mental health label is where that's the part that just, I can't get over that shit. I mean, like, they're not even creative. It's just putting the burden on the victim that can't speak. It's a content killer, though. Like, the moment a newsroom or fucking law enforcement spokesman quietly floats the narrative that a disappearance is likely a voluntary walk-off, or, you know, mental health situations, struggles, the assignment editors kill the fucking story. It's literally killed from the press. Like, but why it matters, you know? True crime investigative teams and national journalists stop dedicating resources, obviously, to a case that they are told it is a private suit, you know, self-inflicted demise. But by branding Melissa and so many others with that label early on, based on 0 medical evidence or anything, the media successfully does what it does by justifying, which ignores the case for, 11 months? Completely choking out the supply of public coverage and photography until her remains were found from a place they already searched. The lack of images, it's by design. The state police want a quiet investigation. Federal ties create an immediate shield against public information requests, and The media used delays as a psychological trope to justify walking away from a complex forensic puzzle. But they, not only the media, but they brought in retired FBI agents that had no fucking standing on the case. They try to make it look like it's official. But it, you know, it's just, what in the entire fuck? The media has a fucking very long, predictable habit of using this fucking mental health narrative. The media is the fucking mascot, the mouthpiece for the fucking, the distraction, and it's convenient. It's a fucking reductive box to sweep away blame and put it, it sweeps away complex people and messy situations under the rug, hand waves them away. It's the easiest way to flatten a story, strip away nuance, and make the public look the other way because it's coming from all the news stations, Like, if we look past that bullshit dismissive framing, like we did in the last, I know that I've already repeated myself a million times, but I was just gonna get straight to the work that she did, but I just can't. I don't think it can be reiterated enough that the news is not the news, The actual pattern, though, points to someone that was deeply embedded in high-level, complex technical work rather than the caricature the mainstream outlets are painting, Like, now we can get into her work. Sorry that I keep doing that fucking recursive bullshit, but her work and her foundation. Melissa Casias was a researcher at Los Alamos National Laboratory. Her professional background was tied directly, like we said before, to highly sensitive government programs, specifically focusing on advanced nuclear systems, aerospace research, and national security infrastructure. Far from being an isolated case with, just a random woman that did this to herself. But her expertise placed her at the intersection of critical energy physics and advanced defense technologies. She wasn't just a face in a crowd. She worked in a space where the math, data, and engineering have massive structural implications for how national security and energy systems operate. God forbid the economics of the fucking oil stocks get, God forbid we think outside of the fucking game warden's textbook. But you could just look at the broader pattern, like the correlations that I just, it's not an instinct, it's a fucking pattern. I mean, any pattern, Helen Keller can see it. Like, her case isn't an isolated anomaly. It fucking aligns closely with the broader picture of with all the people. Like, it's a highly public data set of independent researchers, aerospace engineers, and defense scientists who has faced intense scrutiny, suppression, or sudden closure, or natural causes, wink wink. When looking for people, when you're looking for people as a whole, like, not just searching for anybody that can match the fucking thing, you're looking for what correlates with Melissa, What correlates with it? Well, there's a fucking few key areas and figures that stand out immediately. For one, the Los Alamos Technical Circle. Within her immediate geographic and institutional sphere, her profile links directly to researchers like Anthony Chavez. We could loop back on him. Another Los Alamos worker where, like, his sudden disappearance alongside hers sparked calls for deeper federal investigations. Their work overlapped in environments dealing with classified national security systems and advanced propulsion or energy anomalies. Now, we'll get back to him, but the second elephant in the room is the aerospace and defense pattern. Her situation, Melissa's that is, mirrors a larger systemic pattern that we've talked about, but that pattern recently drawn the attention of the House Oversight Committee and formal investigations. Over the last few years, since they're not making patents, something's got to change. The fucking pattern hasn't, but how they're applying it, it's a growing list of scientists attached to sensitive government programs, specifically involving advanced aerospace, nuclear tech, and anomalous research, have seen their cases minimized by standard media narratives, of course. For instance, just investigative frameworks frequently cross-reference these events with high-ranking figures like Major General Albert McCaslin, and researchers tied to secure aerospace projects, where technical breakthroughs are tightly fucking guarded under security fucking scrutiny classification acts. Now, that being said, okay, number 3, historical precedents of tech suppression. We've touched on the fucking vaporized mechanics. If you track it for over 100 years, the line of work dealing with highly efficient energy systems, it has been introduced. It's been done over and over and over again, suppressed time and time and time again, and every time it's threatened. They call it a threat to the economic, our economy. But that threat is only the threat to the fossil fuel industry. So I guess I can just let me brush on that real quick, so I can just cross that off my list real quick, because the friction that Melissa faced correlates historically with what we talked about, the legacy of the 1951 Invention Secrecy Act. For decades, just to touch on it again, independent minds and institutional researchers, it didn't matter if you were in a garage, it didn't matter if you had a patent, it didn't matter if you didn't patent, it didn't matter if you were working for the fucking government. Suppression on revolutionary, revolutionary inventions that were efficient energy always had the same outcome. It's when institutional researchers who push the boundaries of energy innovation, zero-point dynamics, or anomalous physics find their work funneled into the security categories. Strip it from the public view. When the work is locked down, the narrative shifts to discrediting the individual, often using the exact psychological or mental health framing we're noticing with Melissa and Amy and, so many more. The fucking takeaway, I guess. Let's just wrap the takeaway up on that way we can just move along. But we gotta fucking remember her for the work, because that means focusing on the data she handled at Los Alamos and recognizing that the friction surrounding her is part of a fucking structural pattern that always fucking triggers when individuals get too close to the edge of sensitive, classified, technical frontiers. But that still doesn't tell us, because they worked for her, So, I'm sorry, I talked way too much.